Welcome back to Automate Office Work. I'm your host, Justin, and today's episode is vibe coding with my guest, Thom Barr from Node Masters. Node. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit about your background, please?
Yeah, of course, Justin. First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm Tom. I've worked in legal tech space for coming up to about 10 years. I did a law degree here in the UK, and I then started working in-house as a paralegal, kind of seeing firsthand some of the processes perhaps that could be automated and kind of calling out for that. And then the opportunity came to actually work in legal tech kind of proper. So worked for a couple of different law firms doing document automation, then joined a technology startup called Brighter as a customer success manager for a couple of years there, working with law firms and corporate clients. And then moved to be a consultant at a legal tech consultancy called Psych, which is now Concilio. So working on projects there and with products such as IQ, and then actually leading a practice there to build up a Brighter consultancy. And then just over 2 years ago, I moved from Psych and actually co-founded my own consultancy with some great co-founders, and we're called Node Masters. So we help clients, big and small, law firm and corporate, across a variety of different technologies. So basically, kind of process and automation and workflow automation, and whether that's in the Microsoft Power Platform, whether that's in tools such as Brighter, whether that's in kind of more point solutions such as LawView, or even dabbling in document automation. Still, obviously, quite a bit of increasing kind of levels of AI work as well. So we're really trying to be. I know this is kind of an overused kind of phrase in consultancy, but kind of that trusted partner in terms of process automation and innovation for our clients. So yeah, Nomad's been around for a couple of years now. We're very happy with kind of how it's growing and so on. But yeah, very exciting times ahead though, as we'll get into during our conversation. So yeah, great to be talking with you today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to have a person like I think that you and I are quite similar. We're both
Yeah,
lawyers who saw technology. I think we both have different levels of technology, which is totally fine and like which is great for this discussion. It's like how do you bring the lawyers into technology and
exactly.
use them because they really need to partner with an expert such as yourself or ourselves. And yeah, where is that level of what can they do and where do they need to bring in a professional? I like how you talked about using the existing technologies like Microsoft Office and Power Automate. To me, that history is really Microsoft trying to create some kind of a, it wasn't called vibe coding back then, but they called it low code, no
Yes.
code. And in a sense, it kind of is vibe coding, but without the code. It's like vibe low coding.
And
And
the
then
more,
this is just a development.
oh, definitely, yeah. The more I think about vibe coding and kind of using it in different capacities, but we get to the conversations around it then, and who should do it, what's the governance, and so on. What are the tools and platforms to kind of work with it? And yeah, the conversations actually all end up going back to the conversations being had around kind of low and no code solutions, and
Mhm.
and definitely all of those platforms have been on various journeys. Some were touted as kind of liberating lawyers to build themselves. And that may be true for certain lawyers or certain, kind of like easier solutions. But then you get to building something kind of bigger, meatier, something that needs ongoing maintenance or, ownership within an organization and people moving around. And it very quickly comes back to, well, actually, yes, this is low or no code. It's not that, immediate barrier to start building in it. But actually, all of the components and the governance around it, it's not just a case of somebody building something, kind of throwing it up there and then
Uh-huh.
living happily ever after. And we're coming naturally back to all those conversations around vibe coding now, of course. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would expand it into like vibe building.
Mm,
And it's more like it allows the customer or whoever, the lawyer, your client, whoever is the expert, it allows them to participate in the building. And in a certain sense, you really need them. Without them, it's kind of difficult to know what to build. So we need them to be vibing with us.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. I think vibe coding and vibe building, it's the greatest way to get to our first kind of prototype ever. It's quick. It has a good understanding of kind of gathering your requirements and so on, and throwing something up there. And we've all seen examples, but probably many of us have tried it ourselves. In 5 minutes you can click a link to localhost port 3000 and then click around and like, oh my, it's just like a system that I was being demoed at, and there'll be a 5-figure license fee for. But yeah, having that running locally and covering kind of your main kind of chain of your process, whatever that is one thing. Having it covering all of the edge cases, having it kind of ready to deploy and maintain, that's actually the challenge. And the interesting bit is, and kind of almost the shift in all of this is, that's actually the kind of exponentially where the time and the resource and the human expertise has to go now, compared to the effort necessarily in kind of requirements gathering or design or building. And that's been a shift in itself, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm seeing that there's actually like two definitions of vibe coding then. There's the vibe coding that a non-technical person can do for exploration, to be able to communicate what they would like to somebody who then has the technical skills to actually build it. So then there's the person who actually can build, can also use these vibe coding tools, someone like yourself.
Exactly. And of course, the main kind of messages coming from AI a year or two ago was its increasing use, by developers in terms of, code completion and increasing kind of levels of complexity. And so now it's just got to that point where, elements of that can be done kind of wider. But yeah, there's two very different disciplines here, as you've touched upon. I completely agree with that. The interesting thing will be, and I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, is there any chance of convergence there, or do we think that these are actually going to be kind of two different disciplines? Will anything be able to bridge the gap and really kind of help those kind of vibe coders actually take their initial prototype through and actually go through all of the rigor and the checks and the governance to actually have it kind of more production ready for organizations?
Mm. They would need to know that they need to do these further
Yes.
checks. It's I've got in my notes, it's the unknown unknowns. They
That's true.
don't know that these requirements exist, so why would they go get them?
Yeah, that's you've hit the nail on the head there. It's actually knowing that localhost 3000 isn't going to be how you actually deploy your solution. And exactly, if you don't know that, then yeah, it's true. You can't progress past that. And that's just where I guess that kind of that little bit of knowledge and context, I guess, to a human is everything. Then I mean, I've always lamented the fact, particularly in kind of the past 10 years I've been working in legal tech, that I was always quite technical as a kid, and I was building websites, stuff like that, but often not actually on kind of website no code platforms. And I could understand a bit of HTML and edit little bits of HTML, but I could never kind of code anything from scratch. And in that, and then seeing and working with great developers and all the amazing kind of like features that they were shipping, I was like, oh, that sounds actually really exciting. I kind of wish I knew more of that. But I at least kind of working in those spheres at least gave me, I guess, to our point around the unknown unknowns, that kind of that prerequisite knowledge and context of at least knowing kind of what we're dealing with here and the considerations to go through. And I wonder now, kind of in hindsight, maybe I don't lament as much the fact that I didn't kind of go the full way and become a kind of full developer and learn how
You
to
didn't need
code,
to.
because arguably is that going to be fully necessary now or in the future? But I definitely appreciate kind of the soft skills and the understanding and the context that I have around that, because I feel to our conversation that's obviously going to become more and more important.
I have more and more young people who reach out to me and they tell me that they don't they don't enjoy the area that they studied, and they see that AI is going to take it over anyway in the future.
Mm.
So they want to go do AI instead. And they also find that they can't just jump straight into AI. They don't know how processes work. They don't know patterns. They don't think in these terms. Um, and so they ask me, I tell them you need to get these skills. You need to change how your brain thinks. And then they ask me, can you teach me how to code? And I say, you do not need to learn how to code. There's plenty of people that went and did that. What the coders need is somebody like you. I tell them you need to stay in your area of expertise for a couple of years so you become an absolute expert in your niche, and then find the coders, find the people that are building, because they need you. They don't need you to actually do the coding. They need you to describe to them what's needed.
Com- completely agree. I don't think that, there's clearly going to be challenges in particularly the medium to long term around, kind of subject matter experts and what those roles look like and how they deliver their knowledge. But the value of having subject matter experts in a field is not going to go away. I think kind of industries, particularly professional services industries, are going to be kind of rife with disruption in various forms and different business models in the near future as a result of AI. But at least I feel to be on the front foot of that and to ride that wave and hopefully kind of boom and profit from that and be the disruptor in many cases. Exactly, what you set out there is exactly what should happen. There should be people with that domain experience, that domain context and expertise, and they might not be practicing and applying all of that in the same way that generations previous have, but they've got that core understanding at the end of the day, and then they can leverage AI. They can leverage kind of technologies generally, and hopefully disrupt and hopefully innovate these industries and expertise areas. And I think that would be the exciting bit to it. But yeah, that the need for that contextual knowledge, and I guess what does this look like? What are the problems that we're trying to solve here? What are the services and the value that we're looking to deliver? That doesn't go away, of course, overnight. So yeah, completely agree with you there.
Mhm. So let's shift then to the angle of the person with the expertise. What are the blind areas that they don't see? That, somebody who hasn't studied law, they just look and they see, like, oh, a lawyer produces a contract. Therefore, I can just make some code that makes something that looks like that. And then that's basically doing the lawyer's job.
It, it's kind
What
of
is
almost
that
the flip.
person not seeing?
It's the flip side, isn't it? It's the lack of context, and I guess going back to the unknown unknowns, but obviously on the technology side in this case, then you've got a lawyer going there. But it strives into, I guess, the going back to, I guess, the low code, no code, and the conversations over the past kind of 5 or 10 years. It goes back to the same challenges around that. So I've had conversations with lawyers running kind of small law firms over the past couple of years, and they've seen AI and they instantly go, okay, well, I've got that subject matter knowledge. I've heard about prompt engineering. I want to craft a set of master prompts, and then from that, I want to be able to just have the AI kind of with that foundational basis now just draft entire documents itself and go out there. But then actually a lot of my challenges to that idea weren't necessarily about AI, and there's plenty of discussion points around probably particularly practicing the regulated field like law, probably whether you should be using AI to that extent in that immediate context, at least now. But actually a lot of my challenges were going back to just the document automation principles I was working in about 8 or 10 years ago around actually um, um, the actual structure of precedent template documents and the different conditional logic in them. The fact that actually there's plenty of conversations to be had around a document how you automate it, and the edge cases and so on before you even, with a traditional document automation tool, approach that for automation. And I think all of those, challenges and conversations are only kind of exponentially increasing the idea that we're not even going to have a, template to a document automation platform. We'll just kind of let AI do all of that. So interestingly, I think the challenges in that space are very similar to, a lawyer 10 years ago just going, well, here's our folder of all of our precedents, go automate them, to actually now, well, let's just do it with AI, of what's actually been the ownership and the management of those. Have we thought through kind of all of the edge cases, the things that technology will just, naturally kind of uncover by virtue of the process as well? What does the ongoing maintenance look like? So interesting, kind of all these like cyclical challenges and conversations. Yeah, definitely in that area.
I think it quickly becomes apparent to people that this way of vibe coding will not completely replace them, because like in our example, like you and I are both lawyers. What percent of a lawyer's time is spent actually drafting and negotiating a contract, moving the words around to create an output, this final, what I would call an artifact? It's something that a coder can look at and see like, oh, there's something that was produced. It's only maybe like 10% of a lawyer's time max is actually working with the artifact, the words. Okay. The other 90% of the time, it's meeting with people, building relationships. It is getting them to communicate their intent. And then you have many, many people with all conflicting motivations and what they want. And then you have to align them. So the actual, what you see at the end, it might look simple and easy. It's just moving words around, but the AI can't see all the different stuff that was in the background, right?
Exactly. There's so many human elements to any work, stakeholder engagement and so on, the client relationship. So yeah, that's clearly one area that's going to be very safe. I could foreseeable, at least.
And I think the software developers, they have the same thing, right? What percent of a software developer, what percent of their time is actually coding? And it's maybe 10%. The other 90% of the time is figuring out, what does the client say that they want? Okay, they say one thing, they actually mean this other thing. And then there's many different clients with different competing motivations as well. So they're balancing all of this just the same as everybody else is.
And going back to like process design as well and automating a workflow, it's easy to, when you're mapping it out or, an requirements call with a client, just to kind of stick to, kind of the key path, the path of least resistance. But that's almost assume, that, okay, somebody fills in a form with all the information and then it goes to someone and they'll click a button and then an email will be sent or next step or whatever. But actually it ignores the fact that probably rarely kind of, work or cases are as simple as that. And there'll need to be kind of cyclical steps of, well, actually maybe that needs to be discussed, or that needs to go back or have revisions, or maybe actually it's taken out of the process this way or that way. And it's a key from whether you're a consultant or a developer or so on, and doing any form of process design, actually just take it. People aren't robots, and not every case is going to be as clean as we'd like, and it's having the kind of the foresight as such to obviously have to explore those edge cases, because exactly as you put, it's actually only those kind of key bits that you're looking to automate. The actual work involved is only actually a fraction of the overall time, and there's good reason for that. Then actually there's a lot of discussions and so on that are involved in that.
But so many of us now are like enamored or enchanted with these LLM chatbots, because we can now go outside of our area of expertise and we can now produce something that looks right. But if you don't have that expertise, you don't know when it's actually wrong. So everything looks good.
And this is a really good pick to, I guess, discuss with ourselves in particular, because we're both founders of small businesses, so we have to actually wear many hats in that. So at the start of every month, I'm putting my accounting hat on and doing invoices and working out finances and so on. There might be other times where actually I'm kind of data protection as well. I need to consider X and Y, and then marketing is as well, and obviously know that you'll share in a lot of that, and that's the thing. Obviously, I like to think I'm very competent in those disciplines. The business gets run, stuff doesn't go wrong. But likewise, going back to but it's obviously not my my set career or vocation. I'll try and understand what I need to know, and hopefully kind of cover all of the unknown unknowns. But it's that bit of certainty and 100% where you can't naturally get to in all cases, and that's where actually then for small businesses we'll ask our accountants, or we actually work with partners such as people with expertise in UX design and so on. So when we need that brought into a project, we can have that as well. So naturally, you can't get to that 100% kind of certainty or quality in any discipline yourself if it's not your background. It's actually where kind of bringing in that expertise is useful, and that's ultimately, I think, the challenge that's going to be posed to kind of knowledge industries, and arguably I think kind of the greatest opportunity for innovation and disruption is in a world where everyone can get to 90% of those areas where they don't know very easily with AI. How can we actually help kind of what are the business models to allow people to get to that 100%? Because there's obviously a market for it. There's obviously a lot of money in business to have all of those support functions, correctly operating. But to do that in a different way than perhaps, traditional professional services, and having to engage an accountant to sit there, having to engage a law firm to sit there and look over a matter or so on, and that's going to be the really I guess the really exciting part, and definitely where I feel there's money on the table and kind of a door wide open for innovators, for disruptors to come into this market as well.
I like how you landed on that 90% number. I usually give the number about 80% or 85%. So when I talk with people who want to create something or vibe code something, I tell them, do not focus on the most complex thing, right? Focus on the 80% where it's just super simple. And then keep in the back of your mind that, yeah, there are going to be edge cases. There's going to be escalations, things where humans need to be brought in the loop, and allow for that. Just work on the easy stuff.
And the great thing is that I feel that we've done quite a bit of work internally at No Masters just over the past 4 to 6 weeks. Particularly as all this has been blowing up, and new features are coming to AI platforms such as Claude on a daily basis. We've just been looking at that and go, okay, where's the low-hanging fruit? We don't need to embark on some giant transformation. There's clearly a lot of promise and opportunities across all of our work for this. But what can we tick off quickly? And actually, just internally, the connectors in these platforms. For example, our website's built and hosted on Webflow. There's an MCP connector for that in Claude. So previously, with website work of editing the design, we have translations into German as well on our website. We needed to make multiple updates. We wanted to do a bit of an SEO review on it as well, making sure that we're maximizing our SEO. So to actually have Claude plugged into Webflow and then just ask it then, okay, where are we actually missing translations? How can we improve our SEO rather than having to go to a separate tool or perhaps to pay a subject matter expert for? We're able to leverage that, and all that stuff. It's literally straight. The great exciting thing is it's straight out of the box now. We open Claude, you click connect to Webflow, you type in your prompt. The latest models are very great for that. And how it works, particularly agentically in co-work. and we're able to leverage that from day one. So yeah, that's probably almost my justification for the 90% there, maybe compared to the 80, the 85. It's the capabilities are there now, and I definitely challenge anyone just to think of one area where maybe that task that you're putting back because it's just going to take that extra amount of time or that headspace, and you don't have it, and just put that challenge to AI and kind of see where it gets to, and if it's great and a benefit, then great, you've saved time. If not, then that's completely fine as well.
Mhm.
I mean, do you find
So
it similar in terms of I
yeah.
guess your internal kind of workflows and processes? I'd be quite keen to guess the areas where in your you found it kind of safe or capable to adopt, and the areas that obviously you'd hold back
Mhm.
on at this point in time as well.
So I'm in a bit of a different position because I'm able to code. I'm
Mhm.
able to just open up an editor and start typing from scratch whatever I want. So for me, it saves time. It's an amplifier.
Yeah,
I could take the time to do it, but like, why would I? And I have found that the best way for me to work with the LLMs, I use many of them. I go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. I have not been buying into these premium licenses. I usually just use them for free until it runs out. And then I go to the next one and I cycle across like 10 of them. And by the time I'm done with the 10th one, the first one is already, the clock is redone. So I can just go and use that one, right? So I'm having a great time with this. I usually, the way I do it is I build the basic skeleton of the solution that I want. And then because I can very quickly code that up, I know like there's going to be a home page, there's going to be a settings page, there's going to be an admin panel. So I know where everything goes, and I've got maybe a slot where that code should go. And it just says like in brackets or something, this code goes here or whatever. And so I ask the LLM, I'm able to show it like this is the solution, this is what it's going to look like, and where the databases are. And then I ask it, can you do this one thing first? The most basic thing. Maybe it's like a user database or something, account setup, and then it'll give that to me, and then I test it and I make sure it
yeah.
works. And if it doesn't work, I'm able to read very quickly. Maybe it gives me like 100 lines of code, and I can see on line 100, like, oh, you missed line 101. You need to, do this basic line. And it goes, oh, my bad. And then it adds it, right? But if you don't know, like if you just say this doesn't work, fix it, you get into this, it's like a doom spiral. It just says over and over, you're absolutely correct. Here
Yeah.
is the corrected code. And then you try it, it still doesn't work. And you can spend days and days just wasting your time with this.
I've learned completely. If I ever get into it, because I've wasted more than enough time, I can tell you, particularly like, a couple of occasions last summer. If you get into a doom spiral on particularly code, and yeah, it's clearly not able to figure it out, and it gets more and more kind of crazed and confused. Take
Mhm.
take that step back, because you're down to a certain point where yeah, you're wasting tokens, you're wasting your own time in it. I really like one point you mentioned around the switching around the different models. And I feel actually, my colleagues used to have ChatGPT Plus last year. I actually dabbled a bit in Gemini last year. We've actually kind of all centered in and trying to, properly deploy and properly use it in our organization. Claude at the moment, obviously quite a bit of concern around data residency. So naturally we're anonymizing a lot of stuff or only using it selectively, particularly for obviously anything climate related. But the interesting thing is, I think particularly the speed and pace of innovation of AI tools is also, I get kind of AI model FOMO, so to speak. So
Mm.
Claude in particular in the past month, has been shipping so much. So we bought in quite heavily to Claude, kind of all licensed up properly on that. And now, though, there was, the kind of latest kind of GPT kind of codex release last week, and I'm hearing about kind of sub-agents in it as well. And I'm getting kind of FOMO of we're using Claude, not GPT and Codex at the moment. But if you spoke to me about 2 weeks ago about GPT, then like no one cares about it anymore. It's old hat. And naturally, though, just the pace of innovation between Gemini, between Claude, between OpenAI is just so right, which obviously is it's great for kind of capabilities
So
and
be flexible.
innovation. But you do feel like you need to be using kind of actually not just the models within each provider, but actually kind of all three kind of main players in different ways to get the most out of them. I hate to think what that would look like in terms of cost. So yeah, probably what you've identified there, just running each of the three capabilities to the max is probably by far probably the smartest, the most probably cost effective way to work this at the moment, to be honest.
And you can let them critique each other too.
Yeah, exactly, and just challenge them, to that. I must admit, I've been a personal kind of like flag flyer for Claude for a little while now, and I think one of the maybe these
It is
gaps are
pretty
becoming
good.
more and more blurred, but definitely I think one thing I found, particularly about 6 months ago, and yeah, everyone, ChatGPT was very much in it, but it's just kind of affirmation phase and not challenging back, as you mentioned. I feel Claude is actually quite good on that. I've seen a bit from Gemini as well around around challenging you actually where it's appropriate, but also actually kind of accepting kind of my challenges to its work quite well, and you can always kind of have a bit of kind of good rebuttal with it as well, which is good. But yeah, we've only kind of seen that in recent months with the different models.
I like to use them not necessarily for coding, but for brainstorming, like what
Mm,
needs
yeah,
to be built. So instead of asking a direct question to get a specific answer, because that's not the strong point of these tools, their strong point is to be creative and to generate something new that you didn't think of, like for brainstorming or whatever. So instead of asking a direct question, I don't know, like what is the weather like today? Because that's not their strong. You could easily just go look on a weather website or something,
yeah,
right? And get the actual, like a lot of these LLMs, they don't even know what day it is. They don't
yeah.
know where you're located. So they're just going to give an answer that looks kind of good. And yet you go look it up and it's like, that was completely wrong. It's just made up something. So instead, I will ask it, what is the process for figuring out what the weather would be like today? So then it'll give you like, you need to know where the person is. You need to know what day it is. You need to know, I don't know, do they plan to be outside? Are they
Yeah.
traveling today or are they staying in one position? So then as I'm building a solution that would give my user the output that they want, I don't just I don't just point them to an AI and get the AI's answer. I make a form or something for these to take in these inputs. And yeah, so now we have all the inputs. We have the recipe of what you would figure it out. So then my solutions don't really use AI very much because you don't need it.
On that discovery piece, completely agree. We've got kind of a little currently quite just internal kind of pet project at the moment, and all credit to my co-founder Stefan for working on this and driving this. But it's essentially kind of a use case design agent or evaluator, and it's helping kind of capture requirements for a legal tech use
A
case and
process.
kind of partly design that out and exactly. And but one thing, one area I found it to be really good, and I actually started to fear for kind of my own job. Really, I hope my colleagues aren't planning to replace me with AI, but it is around exactly kind of its ability to ask follow-up questions and really actually kind of like get you to examine kind of the process in your head. So it's easy to type out, kind of just one or two sentences at the start that maybe, to your point, the example there are a bit closed. So I want a system that can do kind of X and Y and produce Z. But actually, then what it's able to do is its follow-ups actually get you to think around. Well, are we going to use that? Are we going to do this? What should happen in this case? What should be
Mhm.
entered there? And have getting to quite a good kind of almost the kind of design session with you. So yeah, completely agree for that kind of discovery, that kind of exploratory use cases. Yeah, it's really powerful just to have that kind of someone to bounce off almost and get you to kind of kind of dig and think deeper around those topics.
Mhm. But if you just go straight to the answer and you have no way to evaluate it,
Mm.
what is the point of this?
Yes.
And if you use, I tell people to use AI not as the end of thinking, but use it as the beginning. Use it as an input. So take what it gives you, and then you think about it deeply, and then
Mm.
you go and create the output. Like you're not depending on it to give you the output.
And going back to what you said before as well about AI something to actually enhance your work or speed it up or
Mhm.
so on. The best way to think around it is, and maybe the kind of the concept that AI is a as some companies are touting a co-worker, a a assistant. There's some there's many ways to explain that and justify it, but perhaps maybe the best kind of, I guess, frame of reference and light to think about AI in is actually a tool, something that
A
you
tool.
hold, you work with, you operate, and but it delivers value in some way too,
Mhm.
and then that going back to, I guess, some of the points I made earlier around kind of these cyclical conversations in the technology and the legal tech space. It in places that I've worked at previously, there's been a big focus on having the right tools to do the job. And I always found that a little bit ironic because I'd be working in offices with that mantra, and then we'd be all trying to like collaborate on like a single Word document, like a weekly report, but it's in a file system, and then it's checked out to one person, and that means that nobody else can go into it. And actually, that person's just left on a break, and they've not closed it and checked it back in. So now this report's due in 5 minutes, and nobody can get into it, and that's clearly like not great tools to do the job. I almost equated it at the time like, well, if it's tools to do the job, then we're being asked to kind of like mow a lawn or cut some grass, but just with some scissors. Like it's a tool, but it's clearly not an effective
It's not the
one.
right one.
Effective one though. So
Uh,
I feel if we carry this kind of maybe like slightly tedious
mhm.
analogy, are we advancing then from scissors to lawn mowers, maybe to sit on mowers, and now actually does the future look like we can actually deploy now a team of robot mowers to go across and cut the grass for us? But then what are the challenges in that in terms of when they make
Uh-huh.
mistakes and quality control on it? What's maybe the human challenges of having less people to
And
mow and so on?
what happens when you ask the robot mower to like cut somebody's hair and they bring a mower afterwards because this is the best technology ever? I'd be like, ah. So I use an analogy that people often use the word AI without actually even knowing what AI is. It's like they started using it in the place of the word technology. And like so my analogy is, what if we started using the word like rocket in the place of transportation? It's like we need different kinds of transportation. Not everything is a rocket, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, a rocket is powerful and fast, and like you might look really cool using it, but a rocket is most useful when like going to the moon. Maybe if you're going from like New York to London, maybe you can justify it. But when I'm going to my living room, to my kitchen, no, I don't want a rocket. Like you need to use the tool that is most appropriate. And when I hear people talking at conferences and things, they usually ask the audience, who here uses AI? And everybody raises their hand. And I'm thinking, such a bad question. What does it mean to use AI? Like we've all been using AI since like 2010 with like image recognition from like Google. That's AI also. Like it's and we all think that this one kind of technology means all technology now. I think the better question now is we're getting, are you using the appropriate tool for the appropriate solution? It's not just one single thing fixes everything.
Completely. It's become such a synonym. And like the challenge that I make kind of sometimes to people is, well, let's take this back. We're all consumers of technology. We all have multiple devices and screens and so on. And I bet, like, I say to people, do you have kind of I'll try and avoid the word because I've got one right next to me, so I don't want to wake it. But a smart speaker that maybe from Amazon or other companies beginning with beginning with the letter A. And like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, okay. Well, what do you use? I mean, there's probably a whole separate conversation and podcast episode around actually how useful that platform is, and how useful it isn't. But just as if you just follow me on this point, and we won't ask kind of questions like that, like what do you actually use it for then? And then 95% will be playing music, setting timers, and if they have any, turning on smart lights or something like that.
Mhm.
It will not be anything further. And actually, in fairness to the platform, if you dive into the app, you can actually set up some quite kind of some quite customized automations with it. You can definitely do quite a bit more than those functions. But yeah, kind of the use cases are kind of very set in stone. People aren't kind of like open to experimenting. But then yeah, people just see that then as actually what's basic kind of workflow automation at the end of the day. Yes, it's from a voice assistant. Yes, there's probably a bit of AI, kind of text to speech in there, but it's ultimately just you're doing insanely basic workflows with this tool that could arguably do a lot more, and we see that in projects is
Mhm.
well, definitely, and it's definitely, I think one thing I think we're definitely setting in this conversation is the value in that process design and those exploratory conversations, and actually to have those to be as deep and rich as possible. And that's definitely true because yeah, you can get people coming to you kind of wanting an AI solution to do this. And well, let's just take a step back. Let's understand, what you want, where you are now, what we're going to put in, what we're going to get out. Well, actually, that doesn't need to be done that way. It can be done in workflow automation tools. And the great thing is, like, if you're in an organization, large percentage likelihood that you're working in the Microsoft stack, you've got great tools out of the box to be able to do that. We don't need necessarily to set up a bespoke matter management system and have kind of and all the different workflows or AI processing, because you've got kind of a lot of those requirements solved out of the box by something you already licensed. So that's something that we believe kind of very firmly in. And then as I look to definitely what we're trying to do internally at the moment, and leverage AI more, and ultimately deliver better because of it. I almost see, actually, I've always got in my head the challenge, at least in 2026, I feel, to legal engineers and people working in the legal tech space is, let's leverage AI, where it makes sense, where appropriate. I guess this comes not for the sake of it, where it makes sense, where it's appropriate, where it's safe to do so. Actually, just to speed up legal engineering and just to speed up the delivery of these solutions to customers. And if those solutions, use and leverage AI, then of course, yeah, like fine, great, but they don't have to. And actually, I personally feel, for those sorts of use cases, I can, deliver better for customers, not by giving them an AI tool, but actually to utilize AI to hopefully improve the delivery of another tool to them, essentially, if that makes sense there. So I almost see, kind of what we're seeing in AI and the different capabilities and challenges we've spoken about today is almost a weight to bear on my shoulders, and a tool to be used where appropriate for my work and my delivery, rather than just shouting at clients and prospects, oh, let's get some AI in there. I don't yeah, because I wouldn't be able to with good conscience, like, kind of like prove how it would necessarily solve kind of all the use
Yeah.
cases and challenges they're putting to me. So I'm a big believer of that, really. What people want never changes. They want their work and their processes done, and done correctly and reliably, and hopefully as quickly and cost effectively as possible as well. And how we get there is actually largely irrelevant to that. But
Mhm.
if we can help them get there quicker, more reliably, or a little bit cheaper by leveraging AI, then that's ultimately delivering for them. And that's at least how I kind of see it. That
The customer wants their problem solved.
Yeah, it's a,
How
it's
you
it's a
do
simple
it doesn't
it's as
really
simple as
matter.
it's as simple as that. Yeah. Yeah, and there's no need to kind of overbake, yeah, kind of what we give them, or even how we get there. But if it can make sense, and if I can, yeah, speed up that delivery or improve the solution in any way by leveraging AI to help get there, and obviously doing that responsibly and safely, then great. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just at the end of the day, anyone in professional services, us or law firms or internal legal teams, all that needs to be done is the work delivering for your end client there. And there's maybe not a need to necessarily overthink or overblow that all the time as well.
Mm-hmm. So I want to recap a little bit about what we've discussed about vibe coding. So there is a place for vibe coding. We need more people to participate in the process. It doesn't mean that they do everything, because there is a line at which they cannot go beyond their level of expertise. So try to find where that is. Go for the stuff that is within your area, and then you can use vibe coding as a way to generate lots of ideas, whatever you want to communicate to the person, who can then take you the rest of that 10% of the way. I'm also hearing that along with that, it's very much useful to use vibe coding in this very first generation phase of solutions. But there's also another large phase in solutions after it's created, and that is maintenance, documentation, having people who then own it, because you or whoever owns this process first, even if you know how it works, you're eventually going to leave your organization. You need to be able to pass this on to another person who is able to own that process, knows what's going on. Otherwise, you're just passing on a black box to somebody who, yeah, they might own it, but essentially they don't. They can't evaluate it. They don't know what happens when it goes wrong. And things can go wrong in the future, but they can't even evaluate that something actually is wrong. They just see a black box that's sitting there. They have no idea.
And exactly to your point as well, that's the challenge, and that's definitely why we need kind of that expertise and not necessarily kind of novices there. It's very opaque. It doesn't necessarily need to be, and I think, like, many of the downsides and the challenges of AI, that will be solved, and it's a question I see of when, not if. But as we stand, as we sit here today, you can have AI produce that great solution to you. You can even actually question and interrogate your LLM around, well, does it do X, or is it safe, or kind of will it work in this case? And it it will answer, and hopefully kind of fairly honestly, and not misleading in any way. But you don't have, if you don't have the ability to verify that, and I think at least at this moment in time as we speak, it does require those soft skills. And the point that you mentioned around how you use it, and you'll get it to do bits, and then you'll go in and verify and so on. You've got obviously the knowledge and the background and understanding to do that. And I hope that's in my case, where my limited kind of knowledge and exposure to coding, but at least hopefully an understanding of the concept and the context of it does go a long way there. And so so I almost going back to, I guess, the analogy of tools to do your job. I think one important bit there is actually tools to do your job there. So if your job isn't necessarily to actually build and maintain IT solutions at the end of the day, then I'd probably politely say to you, maybe then at least beyond the prototype and beyond throwing out ideas and what ifs there, because I think innovation is almost everyone's responsibility in a workplace, but it does need that ownership to a point, to leverage it beyond that idea scoping and that prototyping. It does require that kind of that expertise or that ownership there, definitely. And I think for the foreseeable future, arguably, as well, particularly within corporations and enterprises, where naturally it needs this governance and ownership by virtue of it all.
I think this is an important thing to emphasize, that processes need to be owned by people. There needs to be somebody who is ultimately responsible for the process, because like you and I, we developed solutions for like legal departments. What we develop has legal consequences. right? And if nobody owns it and something goes wrong, who's liable? Who takes the responsibility for this? And let's say you see something going wrong. Who do you notify that something needs to be fixed? If there's nobody who owns it, there's nobody to take ownership of it.
Yeah, most definitely. Can't disagree with that.
Mm. So yeah, I was listening to a podcast by coders a couple of years ago, and they were talking about vibe coding and whatever, and but they said even if you had like the most amazing coder, maybe even your AI is this kind of a coder, even if you had a coder that was just a rock star at coding, they could make the most elegant thing in like a single line of code, right? To the point that your average coder could look at that line of code and have no idea what it even does by looking at it. They're like, yeah, we have to run this to see what it does, right? So you could have this amazing coder who just in like a single minute does the most amazing thing, and then they ship that product. Well, they said that that's actually not the kind of coder that you want in a team, because that code then has a life cycle. It doesn't just need to be generated, it needs to be maintained. Maybe in the future, there's extra features that need to be added. So we need to be able to extend this code. So they said the most elegant code isn't the code that runs the fastest, it's the code that can be read by everyone and they
Mhm.
can understand it the quickest and they can actually work with it in the future.
Completely, and and you know that extends as well. You know, back past coding. You know, I've worked on automated document templates, or even in no code systems with workflows set up. But there's so many different ways you can get to the same outcome in these
Uh-huh.
things that the exact same problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be code, and then it's so dense or so obtuse you can't kind of work it out. You've got to backtrack about 70 steps of okay, what's that variable nested in, and so and exactly just building cleanly, and best practices, and internally, or in any group, sharing those best practices is so important. That's an area that we've been working on more internally. One of the benefits of me and my co-founders at No Masters, we're all senior consultants. We can all just get on and deliver projects. So, we don't have to supervise each other in any way or so on, and we can all just get on and do the work and deliver it. But actually, we've noted that probably a challenge to ourselves is, well, let's actually share how we've done it and best practices more. There's always stuff we can learn from each other. There's always ways we can do stuff more consistently as well in how we approach and design things. So no matter the size or the ability, the experience in a team, yeah, if there's a collective responsibility there. If you're working together, and obviously in a workplace, people will come and go, obviously very naturally. It's
Mhm.
a quite probably arguably quite a fundamental responsibility that everything's done in a best practice and accessible way. I think maybe one area that AI can help there, and at least and we've seen kind of very promising things there, is its the quality of documentation it can
Mhm.
produce is as well, and you can get it to read a code base and then explain stuff out and so on. So hopefully there's a role for AI to kind of make that easier for us as well. Definitely on the flip side, though, one thing I've noted, I'm sure probably everyone that's done a bit of vibe coding has noted this as well, that AI, because as you obviously so correctly pointed out before, its goal is text completion, and to tick off and do something, and maybe not have to concern itself with all the challenges along the way. It will find ways around stuff. So if there's maybe a fundamental reason, like, oh, I've not switched on this setting that I should have in this development environment, is actually the way we should be doing it, and it will try to do something, and it will go, oh, I've hit this error here, I've noted that this is switched on. Oh, I'll just recode all of this, and then we'll just go around it, and then it's a lot more kind of complex and kind of silly and not best practice solution as a result of that. Just because its goal is, well, I just need to deploy this, rather than, well, let's actually do it in the right way, even if there's maybe a few more steps or a couple more conversations than involved in that. So That's probably one risk of having a team member such as AI coding on the team is, does that know all of kind of your rules and best practices and procedures for building, for coding, for deploying there. You almost need to treat it as a junior member of your team as a result, and that includes all of those relevant kind of policies and ways of working that you would work with a junior on, essentially.
I like this very much. I also think that there's a place when you're thinking about how to build in a better way, it is not to focus exactly on what you're solving right now, but think about how would I solve the entire class of these kinds of problems? And then you can build like a module just in a very general way. And then you can recall that module every time you need to use it. So like an example is you need a group of people to sign a set of documents. And you might say like, well, I've got this one document that needs to be signed by this one person. You might hard code, this is the document and this is the person's email address. Well, that person moved. They're going to leave the company and you're going to have a different person. So you might make that a variable. But then you might also see that, well, we have this document signing process that's in all of our different solutions. Why don't we just build this once? It's a set of documents that needs to be signed by a collection of people. Maybe there's a deadline and maybe we want some reminders every X number of days. And when it's signed, maybe we want a copy of it in our signed documents repository, but then also save it in the specific repository for that specific tool as well. So, yeah.
And the great opportunity, I think, that actually kind of vibe coding could arguably offer here is, you kind of saying those examples of like hard coding like a signatory, it brings like so many like kind of almost PTSD memories and experiences to me where actually and often in conjunction with clients and in conversations we've had almost kind of trade-offs of kind of effort versus scalability. So exactly this signatory, are they around for the long term? You've not got kind of policies to change that. Well, the more scalable way is to do it, kind of a database or a lookup or something, more dynamic or more easily maintainable or scalable. But naturally in projects you maybe want to make those trade-offs. Obviously clients want value at the end of the day, so they'll go, well, no, well, let's just do it this way. But the amount of times then actually later on down the line, and actually we need it this way. And then obviously it's exponential more effort then to unpick it and build out than maybe from the start. So I go into if I begin kind of vibe coding kind of any kind of new idea, I've got right at the front of my mind just the scalability of it. I don't want it to be a nice kind of 5-minute demo that works on local host only. I'm thinking about how and where can I deploy this, what technology frameworks make the most sense, how are we going to do authentication, what's the what databases should be set up and so on, and doing that really just exhaustively as possible before even beginning to build, so that it's almost kind of the kind of the tempting fruit almost. You can build in 5 minutes, let's just start now. But if you're building something and then later going, oh yeah, that's quite good, let's deploy this properly, or let's add in X feature or Y feature or so on, actually you'll be more so with vibe coding than ever. You'll be getting to that point now where you're better off just starting rebuilding it and then thinking about that kind of the scalability and the infrastructure properly. So I'm so cognizant of the fact of as I'm sure kind of a team of developers are before they begin out building a new SaaS platform or something. Let's actually really nail down the schema of everything, the infrastructure of it all first, and then we actually build and add the features on and so forth. So really cognizant of that.
So I'm getting from you that your customers' vibe coding is not going to get rid of the need for your services. There's a place where you're going to be cleaning up a lot of garbage that they bring to you.
I mean, ultimately, that's a challenge and a question that I can put to them, and they're more than welcome to answer. But I think, as this conversation's shown as a whole, obviously, we've clearly got slightly vested interest in it, but hopefully we've articulated our points well. That there is a need for expertise in this, and maybe not in terms of the full amount of delivery and effort and building that there was previous. That we've clearly established there's a role and great potential with vibe coding there, but the value definitely coming from solving those unknown unknowns, having kind of lived through these challenges more, not just from vibe coding, but as we've discussed, actually just the years in the technology space that we have been, and actually having seen these conversations and these challenges around governance and scalability and so on before. Those challenges haven't changed. So definitely I still feel there's great value from consultants and hopefully what we can bring to the table from that expertise there. But definitely I'm excited to innovate and hopefully speed up and try different ways of delivering, actually as our clients get more and more I guess
It's
hungry
only going
for
to
that as well.
increase
Yeah.
the amount of automation in the world. Like we
Definitely.
need even more. I don't see us ever like finishing all of the automation that needs to be and all the problems that need to be solved.
I mean, exactly. You look at kind of any kind of innovation or legal ops team or so on. Once again, maybe
Yeah.
obviously they've clearly got a vested interest in having the innovation and the legal ops development continue. But ultimately it's because everything's natural. It's kind of organic in a way. Nothing kind of truly stops. Everything's naturally evolving. With the demands of the business ultimately and so on. And so actually the support functions, including legal and then by virtual legal tech and legal ops and professional services such providers such as law firms, such as legal tech consultancies, we're all just kind of growing and adapting to kind of meet those kind of growing needs ultimately. So I think it's very just to say it doesn't stop and actually it clearly with what's going on at the moment it will just kind of grow and grow as well. So I've generally been never more excited than the past couple of months in terms of, and kind of a little bit kind of nervous and scared at times for kind of various reasons. And I see some of the output and go, that's not far from where I am, But I'm genuinely really excited though, because I guess the barriers to entry and the barriers around resourcing and capability in some points are being lifted. What can be achieved is getting bigger. I think it's a nice challenge to do it in a space such as legal, which comes with all of its kind of very well justified requirements and governances as well, because it'd be easy if I work in another industry such as marketing or so on, just to ship something every day but is it really kind of all that or really that good? We're actually having the sort of discussions we've been having today, having the sort of discussions with clients or at conferences around, well, this is definitely here and this is definitely valuable, but how do we do it? How do we do it right? That's actually a fun challenge to have.
That's the
So
question.
never been more excited for that, actually, to actually have these conversations and explore those challenges ultimately.
I think it's nice that people are finally having the discussion. Like
Yeah.
we've had technology for decades and nobody was discussing it. And now that we have like some interesting technology, now they're talking about like workflows and automation and like they're trying to bring a lawnmower to a haircut a lot of times. But at least now we can have the discussion like how do you do this appropriately?
I mean, the age-old problem, as we all know in technology and innovation, is actually just getting people's attention necessarily, and the
Yeah,
the
it's a
enthusiasm and the
good thing.
buy-in to it. So, for all of the faults and challenges of AI as we've discussed, everyone's switched on now. I'm sure everyone's got an anecdote about, maybe kind of a more senior or more traditional kind of leader or executive that was always kind of maybe dismissing technology before, but actually now maybe partly just out of fear at the end of the day as well, because they're seeing kind of the pushback and the challenges from their end clients in terms of, well, can't we do this, better or quicker? Why aren't you using this? Um, because we're all seeing that, it's getting the attention now, and that's great, because then we're hopefully bringing more people along on
That's
the
nice.
journey, and we're probably having these discussions on a greater scale now than we ever have before. I think there's still a lot to be figured out, in terms of
Okay.
where we end up on in this space. There's billions upon billions of VC money being kind of put in different places, and bets around that. So it'll take some time to see where all the dust settles and where stuff falls. But the great thing is, you can't be a denier to this anymore, and that's quite an exciting place just generally to be in.
Mhm. Okay. I think it's a good place where we can start wrapping up. I'd like to maybe the final or next to the final question. I don't know. Um, how would you recommend that your customers approach vibe coding?
Ooh,
I guess
yeah.
before they approach to you, you want them to be doing something on their own, and then to come to you. But okay, how would you recommend that they do this?
I love nothing more than working with customers that are, generally enthusiastic, and actually quite creative, in terms of mindset around the projects we're working on, and the solutions that we're working
They
with
feel
them. So
ownership of it.
exactly, yeah. I
They're part of
always
it.
feel that I always feel maybe like slightly like kind of like guilty to an extent when I use the word creativity in relation to what we do in legal tech. But actually, though, there is a creativity in building design and workflows, or user experiences, or so on, and to actually unlock that and take off the guardrails of low or no code solutions, and what actually now Vibe Code can build anything and fill in the gaps which couldn't be before. That's quite creative in itself there. So anyway, enthusiastic, always great to work with, because then you can bounce ideas off each other. It's great, to then kind of see through the problems with them. But I guess it's just knowing, it's having an appreciation though for the more kind of technical or challenging, or those governance and security sides to it is well. So it's hopefully a mix of both. We've probably all seen and dealt with maybe quite exacting customers, or customers seeking perfection, and very rightly, but there's naturally trade-offs you have to make with technology, and particularly in the low or no code space. There's certain limitations to platforms there, and there's be certain limitations as well, just to anything we build, even in the age of vibe coding. So having that enthusiasm, but hopefully that just appreciation is well for where there are limits, and where we can hopefully guide them and add value. That's what I ideally like. But in terms of a customer coming to me and sharing their screen, and something that they've built in 5 minutes, running a local host, and all of that, I wouldn't fear for that, or go well, how dare you, kind of like look behind the curtain and start building vibe coding or anything like that, because it means they're passionate, it means they're engaged, it means that we can get to a cool solution ultimately, and if they'll have me along as part of that journey to hopefully add value, then all the better. But I'd hate, whether they choose to work with me or not, kind of any customer, any prospect, or anyone, just to maybe not have that full appreciation we've spoken about, and worked out what the challenges are, thought about the unknown unknowns, and so on. That's the bit where, particularly in an enterprise and a law firm context, stuff can fall off the rails a little bit. But no, I'll never speak ill of anyone that just ultimately wants to build cool stuff, and to
Uh-huh.
kind of automate processes at the end of the day. That's always going to be great.
We all started as beginners.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've told this story in like a few different contexts, but going back to like my first kind of like proper job after university, I was paralegal, doing all those manual processes, having to log stuff in spreadsheets, and scan post and take minutes and so on. And I think about all of that now and how AI would be able to achieve that. But at the time, I was just clicking around on like our internal systems. I noticed there was a
Mhm.
SharePoint instance available. And then it's like, oh, hang on, we can chuck those documents in here. And then I found there was like a it was like a third party workflow builder in it. And like, oh, so hang on, we complete this form, and then if it's like a certain date value, then we can send out this email. Like, well, that's I'd have to type out that email manually anymore. And that was so exciting. And yeah, I probably would encourage people get into it now, because I was junior, and probably these processes need to be signed off by someone more senior. But I just built and started running it with absolutely no communication or visibility. Ultimately my job, the work, the process still got done. But I was just choosing to do it kind of more smartly or more automated at the end of the day. But discovering that and seeing how actually my work and our internal processes could be automated in that way, that was truly exciting and liberating. And then to actually find a career doing that. And I look at what I
Uh-huh.
do for clients now, and it's not a million miles different from what I was just doing for myself 9 or 10 years ago. Like that always, and you can see that now on my face, that always brings it's a great validation in a way, but it brings a smile to my face of there's such value in that, and I'm quite proud of myself, so to speak, for having kind of spotted that at the time. So yeah, as you've probably seen on many occasions on this recording, I've forgotten what your question was, but hopefully that wasn't the worst answer in the world. So yeah.
No, no, no. Like, what do you want your ideal client to do before they approach you? So I'm hearing you want them to get curious and to
Yes.
explore. And I also heard you use the word partnership. So you want someone to partner with you in this exploration, this creativity. And yeah,
We
it's so enjoyable.
One of the interesting things we found at Node Masters is the amount of work we've done where we kind of call it legal engineering on demand. And so rather than maybe a set project and kind of like fixed fee pricing and stuff, which by the way we do. So if
Uh-huh,
anyone
uh-huh.
wants any of that, we definitely will deliver your project end to end and all of that. But actually, the way I love working with customers the most, and this maybe stems back to when I was a customer success manager and therefore having these kind of long ongoing relationships with customers, is kind of working with them on demand. So I will work them across a variety of solutions, a variety of use cases. We'll scope and find the best solution within their tech stack to cater for that, and have all those regular calls and so on. That and yeah, for the sake of almost sounding cliche in a consultancy sense, genuinely building that ongoing relationship and that partnership with them, that we'll work together and we'll solve those problems and build that cool stuff. Projects are always great and so on, but sometimes the fixed nature and fixed requirements of them, obviously they're there to prevent creep, and at the end of the day the budgets need to be stuck
Uh-huh.
to and so on. But it can sometimes prevent you from actually more naturally exploring use cases and being more iterative and being that ongoing support for ongoing maintenance and development and so on as well. So those projects are great, but actually what's even better is yeah, really kind of that ongoing relationship with the client. And we've kind of called it like legal engineering on demand, really. That's how we kind of work it. But yeah, I always enjoy that.
I've offered a service. I call it
Mhm.
like a legal ops hotline,
Oh,
and
I like that one. In the old
and
consultancy
I've
I was, we tried to call it like concierge as well. So it is definitely that sort of concept. Yeah.
because imagine like there's hundreds of lawyers in a company, and they have not studied process. Maybe they don't even know what tools are available because there's so much stuff, and it doesn't even have to be your tools necessarily, but like
Mhm.
a lot of companies, they lose track of their technology inventory. And
Yes.
even beyond technology, like what companies do we have available to help us? And like, so lawyers, they get something to do, and their vision is just so narrow on what they need to do that they don't know that there's an efficient way to do it. They're just like, okay, I guess I there goes my weekend, right? I'm going to have to do this for 20 hours manually going through this. So what I've offered to clients is is come on, let's have like a monthly retainer, maybe like a minimum of like an hour or two that you
Mhm.
pay me ongoing. And then you tell all of your lawyers, hey guys, whenever you have something, a big challenge, and you think like, oh, there goes my weekend. No, first call this hotline and we'll go through it. And like I can just describe, maybe you already have like mail merge or something. You just use Excel in the right way, right? Like I don't have to go build it, but I can point you in the right direction. Or I can say like, oh, we did an inventory of your technology. You've got this other tool from this other
Yeah.
thing that you bought. Like you just need to go use that. So many companies, they don't even know what they have, right?
Yeah.
So
I think there's one justification that I am sure you can as well make for, yeah, like any kind of like ongoing model or retainer for a consultant is actually you're getting so much ROI from all of your the license fees that you're paying for your tech stack ultimately. You may discover stuff that perhaps you don't need, or you may kind of maximize or find new use cases to extend out, particularly where you're not
uh,
paying a per use case or a per user license fee. You've got that kind of that full license carte blanche, and let's see kind of how we can really kind of maximize that. So completely, yeah, there's probably I'm sure finance teams everywhere
or,
probably
or
there's probably a
or
lot of
or
money
like
under the padding.
we already built
Yeah,
this other solution. All we have to do is add an extra little feature to it.
yeah, exactly. So
It's
so much is just kind of like just sat there sometimes. So and that's where yeah exactly that kind of ongoing relationship really helps. By all means, we can do knowledge transfer and documentation kind of back to you as a client, but actually to have us
yeah.
around and be that kind of almost an extension of your internal context, your internal memory, and we understand your business, we understand your tech stack and your processes, and therefore we can be that call away, and actually questions can be answered in just a kind of a matter of minutes and steers for next steps. That's hopefully really good. And yeah, it's not the first time in the world of consultancy like the term partnerships being used, but I hopefully really argue actually the value offered there, and actually why it arguably is a partnership. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could go on for
Oh
like
yeah,
hours
definitely.
now.
I was looking at the clock as well.
We
Like
should
it's
wrap it up.
absolutely, it's flown by. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, some of what I said at least made coherent sense there. But no, just a great conversation to have.
Yeah. All right. Can you let us know your website and how to contact you?
Yeah, of course. So we're at Node Masters. If you search Node Masters, or it's node-masters.com. We're still trying to work on the unhyphened domain there. But yeah, you can also
Mhm.
search Node Masters on LinkedIn. Myself, my co-founders Wolfgang and Stefan are obviously on there as well. But yeah, it'd be just great to hear from anyone, have a chat. You can also book just a half hour, kind of free consultation exploratory session on our website as well. So if anyone just wants to chat, obviously feel free to.
All right. And I'd be glad to have you on again if you'd like to become a regular guest, if you'd like. If you have any other topics that you would suggest, feel
Yeah,
free to give them and let's do it again.
yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I feel yeah, I feel yeah, I can talk for ages, as you've probably seen about all sorts. So yeah, we'll definitely figure something out. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, let's definitely make this kind
We,
of
we're, we're
semi-regular
so
thing.
similar in our backgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've 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 been there, we've seen it. Yeah, we've got the battle scars to prove it as well. But yeah, really, no, really enjoyed that, Justin.
All right. Then we'll wrap it up. And I wish the audience happy automating.